My name's Dan, Dan Hunter. I'm actually from Texas. It's another country just south of here. But man, I love Oklahoma. Anytime I get to come to Oklahoma, I think it's just a wonderful state, and I love this area, and it's just a blessing to be here. It doesn't get very cold in Oklahoma, so I kind of feel like I'm in a blizzard right now, even though it's not even snowing. But last night I thought I was gonna die. I've got enough insulation on my body, but still, I was like, man, I didn't even know what to think. Man, it's so cold up here. I can't even deal with it. Texas, it's like a cold day for Texas is around like 80, Like if it's 80, we bust out our Patagonia jackets, and get those things ready. But man, it's so fun being here with you guys. I've got my daughter with me, Avery. She's right there. Come on, Ave. She's the best. Yeah, she is the best. She's co-best because she has a twin. Her twin is at home, and they've got my best friend as a mama. She's so much more godly and loving, and she's just so much better than me, right? Every guy in here, isn't that true about your wife, right? Aren't you thankful that God speaks to your wife? Man, it's just an amazing thing. And over the years, what I've noticed in youth ministry is, man, it takes a family, and it's not just your family, but it's a family, right? And we can kind of know that God kind of leads us towards that. And even some of you that have come from the same church and you've gathered here together, maybe you've come with a group of 5 or 10 or 15 or whatever it is, you kind of become this family that God puts together, and you get to grow that family, right? And you get to fight together and grow together, and you get to learn together. And that's what this conference has been all about. What I want to talk to you about in this last session is just a lesson that I learned when I was 25 years old. Now, I've learned a lot of lessons in youth ministry. How many of you have learned a lesson, right? You learned a lesson. And oftentimes, I don't know about you, but I learned the lessons the hard way. Like simple lessons, like don't spend more money than you have. That's never good, right? You go on a youth ministry trip, you can come back with more people, but not less. And if you come back with more, it's a win. You come back with less, it's not that good of a situation. It's not really something that creates job security for you, Like I even one time, I hate to even say this, but I left a kid at a youth convention, right? I'd been in youth ministry about 2 years. I left a kid in youth ministry at youth convention and didn't know it till I got all the way back to the church. Now, it'd be great if youth convention was 20 minutes away from our church, but it was like 2.5 hours, which isn't that big of a deal, because it only took me, 5 hours to go back and get them and bring it back. But I was just shocked I even had that. How many that's an important lesson to learn? And now you get to you get to count everyone on the van and make sure that everyone's back, right? How many have ever been the counter before when you load back in a van? Yeah, it feels like that's not a really good job, but can I just tell you how important that is? I've learned some major lessons, in youth ministry. And I think one of the biggest thing is that I remember when we went to our first church, I felt like in youth ministry, I felt like God had called me to do some great things, a lot of passion. I was pretty excited, and I was just full of God, and I didn't really know what I was doing. But to me, it was like if you were full of passion, then you kind of did know what you were doing because you had God. Because bless God, everyone just needs God. It doesn't even matter how it happens, just give them God. And so I walk into this church, and they wanted us to be the youth pastor, so we were there interviewing, and they said, hey, come on a Wednesday night, and come to our youth service. I said, okay. So I go to the service, and I walk in, and in my mind I'm thinking, I don't care where God sends me, I'm gonna blow it up. It's just gonna explode. This thing is gonna go quick, and it's gonna be fast, it's gonna be good. And so I walk into this thing, and this is no joke. Man, it was one of the worst situations I've ever seen. I walk in on a Wednesday night, and there were 12 people, which that was good, for the church, but there was 8 students and 4 leaders. And we walk in, 7 o'clock, I walk in, I'm in there about 10 minutes early. Nobody is doing anything. Everybody's just sitting, talking. 7:15 comes. People are in there with Whataburger. Do you guys know what Whataburger is? It's only one of the best burger joints ever, right? That or In-N-Out. I don't know where you are on that, but Whataburger definitely is from heaven. I'm not saying that In-N-Out is from anywhere else, but definitely So they're in there with Whataburger. They're in there and they're just sitting there. 7:20 comes. They're all just eating. 7:50 comes. 8 o'clock. We've been in there 1 hour. Nobody's done anything. This is youth service. Nobody's done anything. So we just kind of go, and in my mind, I'm like, I don't even know what's happening. Is this real? Is this regular? There was a marker board on the wall. One of the leaders walked up and goes, hey, John, come here. And this kid walks over there, and he goes, guess what I'm drawing? Okay, I'll tell you what, I'll draw this dude, and then I'll have him throwing up on the floor, and like on the deal, and you guess what I drew in the throw up. And he said, okay. So, and he was actually a really great artist. I'm not sure that's youth ministry, but definitely it was great. So he threw vomit. He's like, and so he's getting all that, and that was it. 8:20 comes, 8:25 comes, 8:27 comes, and I kid you not, one of the leaders in the back goes, hey guys, we only got about 3 more minutes. I think that we should probably do something spiritual, maybe pray or something before your parents come to get you. So does anybody want to pray? No one raised their hand. Nobody wants to pray? Okay, I'll pray. God, pray that you'd help us. All right, that's it. Guys, see you. That was their whole youth service. So I walked out of there and said, there's no way God's calling me to this place, right? Like, no. Like, I'm meant for greatness. Like, wherever I go, this thing's going to. So, and then we walk away, and my wife, over the next 2 days, my wife tells me, hey, I feel like God's call. And how many of you know your wife, like, they just hear from God better than you do? Like, men, that's just a fact. All the women said, yes, right? Guys, you're not happy about it, but it's true. And so I was like, oh, I'll tell you what, I'll fast, I'll pray. For the next couple of days, I don't know why, and to this day, I don't know why, but God, I felt like was calling me to this church. So I said, okay, all right, I'll do it. So we end up going, and I was depressed because I was like, how in the world? And I said, it's okay. There are 12 today, but in 6 months, this thing's going to be 1,200. We're going to have 1,200 kids. I'm telling my wife, she's like, Dan. And I go, no, I'm telling you, I'm going to explode this thing. This thing's going to blow up. I'll never forget it. 2 months into our first youth pastorate, I'm sitting there. I didn't know what I was doing. And let me just tell you something. What I'm about to tell you isn't the right way to handle it, but it was a way to handle it. And I'll tell you this right now. If we're not careful, that's the way we lead our youth ministries. Too oftentimes, as youth pastors and stuff like that, leaders leading a small group, leading our worship team, we don't necessarily do it the right way, but we do it a way. But there's a difference between the right way and a way. And so all of a sudden, I'm there, and I'm telling you what. Okay, look, I haven't always been good, but I'm telling you right now, on this night, I was good. I'm telling you, I was preaching. I was preaching really good, you know? It was like once in a blue moon, but nevertheless, on this night, I'm giving it. And so our room was so small. It was like from this speaker to this front row. That's how, it was a classroom. It was like a closet. And so basically, we had a little bitty room, and it was about as wide as this middle section, maybe crossed over to that first seat. And so I'm there like this, and my wife wouldn't lead worship, even though she's a worship pastor. She goes, no, we just need to wait. I was like, no, we're going to worship because things are going to be different. So I get up there and I say, listen, I don't care what, no more Whataburger. I don't care how good it is. No more Taco Bell. We're coming in here, we're going to worship. We had no one on the instrument, like no one on piano, no one on, we didn't even have, couldn't even have fit it in the room if we had it. And so I'm just like this. I said, babe, look, you got to lead worship. She goes, man, I think we need to be creative and do something else. No, we're going to do worship. Even if we have to do it Acapulco, we're going to do it. And so sure enough, man, I get in there, and this is no joke. I'm leading worship, and there's only, in the front row, now there's only 2 rows, but in the front row, like I'm right on the dude in the front row. And so the guy, I'm like, everybody stand up. And no one wants, I'm the only one singing. I'm just loud because I'm from Texas, so it worked. But like the front row would stand up, and his face was right here. And so here's what I did. I just closed my eyes, lifted my, I don't even know if half the time I was worshiping God. I just didn't want to stare at the dude. And I know he wasn't worshiping. He just was like this, like, right? And so I'm leading worship, and I get to preaching, and I'm telling you, it's really good. Kid in the back row, the second row, kid in the back row raises his hand. And I'm like, dude, this isn't school. And so I just turn my back thinking if I ignore it, it'll go away. So I walk over here, and I'm like preaching to this side, and then I come this way. I stare at the ground until I pass him and come back over here and give it to this corner, and I look, and the kid's like this. Like this. Sits on the edge of his seat. I said, okay. I said, what? And he goes, I don't believe a word you're saying. Well, I'm a really nice guy, but something snapped, and I threw my Bible down, my notes down. I said, what? He goes, I don't believe a word you're saying. So we ended up having an interchange there. It was a way. It wasn't the best way to handle that situation, but I did it. And then I just felt like, you know what? Forget that. Let me just tell you something. Things are going to be different from now on. You ever felt like that? Like, man, we're going somewhere, right? So I'm thinking, man, we're going to be 12. We only got like 3.5 months now to get to 1,200. So like my reputation's on the line. So I'm like sitting there going, okay, look, things are different. There's going to be a line drawn in the sand. And I'm here to tell you right now, from this point forward, things are going to be different. No more. Things are going to be different. So when you walk in here, you're going to worship. When you walk in here, you will amen people that preach. When you walk in here, we're going to bring friends. And I'm sitting there telling them. And then I go, so everybody, you gut check time. You're either in or you're out right now. And I don't know why I did it. It was a stupid way. But I looked at the kid that raised his hand and I said, right now, you're either in or you're out. What's it going to be? He looked at me and he goes, I'm out. So he gets up. And here's the bad thing. The only door in the room was right here. And so he had to walk. We had one aisle right in the middle. Everything else, chairs were against the wall. So he walked up, had to walk right here. I had to go, oh, excuse me. He walks out that way, straight out. And I go, you either in or you're out right now. I kid you not. You know what his answer was? He was my ride. He gets up, walks out. That's okay, buddy. Okay. Next one, I don't know why. I just did it. You either in or you're out right now. Next one, I'm just going down the line now. And he goes, that was my brother. He gets up, walks out, says, okay. And then something hit me, and I was like, yeah, it's blowing up all right. The opposite, while I've literally blown it up. And I literally said, okay, for the rest of you, you're in. You don't even have a choice. You're in right now. How many of you know there's a difference between a way, right, and a right way? Well, needless to say, 4 months go by, and I literally do not know what I'm doing. I'm just incredibly passionate. Like, I'm just choosing ways. I'm not really doing it God's way or even a right way. Necessarily, it wasn't bad. It's just there's a difference even between good ways and God ways. Yeah. And you got to find the God way. And I'll never forget it. We started growing just because of passion. Sometimes passion will just do something for you. And so I was just passionate, and we started growing. So we got from, I lost 3. So we went from 9 to about 30. And then luckily there was another closet next to our closet. And so they let us knock down the wall, and that was good. So we ended up growing to 30. And then we knocked another wall down. The way it was configured was kind of weird. And we knocked that wall down. And so now we're running 45, 50. I'll never forget it. But I was literally doing everything. Anybody ever been there where you just feel like you're the only one that even cares? That's the way I felt. And then all of a sudden, 6 more months went by. We're running there. And I'm just thinking, man, I'm the only one that cares. I'm the only one that's given everything to it. I'm the only one that everything kind of even matters. I mean, like, I would get there and I don't even know what I'm doing. Like, but I would type all the songs into the PowerPoint. I don't even know how to do that. And like, Google didn't exist. So I'm literally back there on a computer typing stuff in. I don't even know what I'm doing. And like, I'm back there doing everything. Like, I was so mad. I was setting up every row of chairs myself because when they're not straight, it frustrates the junk out of me. You know what I mean? And so like, I'm like, God, people can't get saved if the rows aren't straight, you know? And so like, I'm straightening the rows. I'm literally doing everything. We're doing a monthly newsletter. We don't even do that anymore. I don't even know what that was. That was a whole era right there of youth ministry. And so we were doing that. I was typing them up. I don't even know how to type that guy. I'm like this. I'm designing, clip arting everything, like cutting it with scissors. Y'all don't even know about that blessing. And so I'm doing it all. And I feel burnout, and I'm going to be transparent. I feel like it's not going as fast as I want. I don't really even know how to change the tide and the feeling of the room. I don't even know what I'm doing. And here's what I did know. I didn't really like it, and I didn't want to do it anymore. I knew God called me in the ministry, but it just wasn't fun. So I'll never forget it. I was driving home, and because we had knocked down a couple walls, there were some repairs that needed to be done, and we were doing some electrical work, and it's stupid, but I got done driving a kid home. You know, I was even driving all the kids home. It was just ridiculous. So I come back, and like, I pulled through the parking lot, and someone had left the light on. I don't even know who left the light on. Never forget this night. Changed my life. I saw the light on, drove through the parking lot of the church. I lived kind of across the street, and I was so mad. I got out, slammed my door on the car, and I was griping the whole time. was like, man, it's stupid, man. I got to fold newsletters. I got to put label. I got to send those. I got to do clip art. I mean, I was stupid. I'm just all the way straightening it. No one else straightening the chairs. No one even cares about it. Man, and so I'm in there and now I got to turn the dumb light off. And so like, I don't even know where the light switch is. So I walk all the way across because it's all under construction. I figure it out, turn it off. And I'm walking back across the room and then I realize it's almost midnight. It's really dark. Now I can't see in there even though there's windows. And like, I'm walking back across the room. I don't even know what I'm doing. And I'm like, now I can't walk. So you know how when you get up in the middle of the night, you're like, shuffle your feet, you're just like this. So I'm walking real slow. Probably look stupid, but the lights are out, so I'm okay. And like, I walk like this, and I get a little confident because I can tell the door's there. So I start speeding up, and lo and behold, I bust my shin on a 2x4. And let me just tell you, it was the worst pain I had felt in a long time. I dropped to the floor in this dusty, construction-filled room. I dropped to the floor, and I was so mad. I started yelling at God. I said, God, I don't understand. You've given me an incredible vision, but I just wish you would give me 5 more of me. Just give me 5 more people who care like I do. You ever felt that prayer? You ever felt that aggravation? I just want 5 more of me. Just give me 5 more people who care. Do you know what we could do? Do you know what we could start? Do you know how many students we could reach? If I just had 5 more people that cared like I care, that I had 5 more people that cared about excellence like I care about, do you have 5 more people that would get on board with where we're going? And I sat there, and I remember about 30 minutes crying. I was like, God, I don't even want to do this anymore. I know you called me, but I'm done. I don't understand. I just need 5 more of me. And I'll never forget it. I felt about as audible as possible, but it wasn't audible. But I felt it in my spirit. And when I said, God, I wish I had 5 more of me, I felt like the Lord said this, so do I. Well, I stopped crying. I got up. And I was just mad because I didn't even understand what that meant. I was like, stupid. You want 5 more? So do I. Well, then do it, right? And so I'm like, well, I don't understand. If you want it, then make it happen. So I get in the car, drive across the street, get in. My wife goes, what'd you do? What's wrong? Where you been? Oh, I was over there. Stupid. I got to bust my shin. I was crawling floor crying. It's stupid. I felt like God said, so do I. What is that? My wife goes, well, it's pretty obvious. I go, no, it's not obvious. If he wants it, he should do it. And he goes, no, he's saying, that's your job. So why aren't you making 5 more of you? Well, that made me mad too because she's smarter than me. And she hears from God better than me. Now I just feel, I'm just like, look, I got to stay up. I got to process this and I got to like figure things out. And so I'll never forget it. That night I stayed up all night, didn't go to sleep. Wrestling with everything that I'm doing, building my ministry just on passion, just on personality, just on doing it a way, not God's way. And all of a sudden, I come to this crossroads in the middle of the night. And the Lord led me to a passage that I'm sure a lot of you know, but I want to read that passage to you today because I kind of feel like as we close out this deal and you're about to go home, I want you to have a moment with God. Now, this isn't a dark room full of construction and 2x4s. But if I could create this moment, I want you to have a moment like I had in that room. It was under construction with walls torn down when I was 25 years old, and God showed me what it was really all about. So if you can, open up to Exodus 18. I want you to see this. Exodus 18, verse 13 and out through 23. And I'll jump around a little bit, but I just want you to read this interaction. And I found this passage, and it changed my life. I want you to see this. In chapter 18, verse 13, here's the scene. The Bible says this in verse 13. Moses took his seat, now watch this, to serve the people. What was he doing? Serving the people. Is that something good to do? Yes. But watch this. Moses took his seat to serve the people. And watch the next part of this same sentence. And they stood around him from morning till evening. Was Moses busy? Yes. The Bible says from morning till evening, he stood and he was serving people. In other words, what he was doing was good. What he was doing was ministry. But there is a difference between like being busy and being productive. There's a difference between having a bunch of activity without productivity. In other words, you could be doing a lot of good stuff, but that doesn't mean it's the right stuff. So all of a sudden, you see Moses from morning till evening, and then the next sentence there in verse 14, it says, when his father-in-law saw all that Moses was doing for the people, here's what he said, what is this you're doing? In other words, it wasn't really a question. It was more of a statement like, are you an idiot? Then he goes on and says, why do you alone? Everybody circle that word, highlight it in your little phone, do something with it, right? Circle it if you got a paper Bible. Like, why do you alone sit as judge? Everybody say the word alone. See, he was busy. He wasn't even going home for dinner at 5 o'clock. From morning till evening, he was working. I don't even know if he took a lunch break. He was working so hard. But when you do it in your own way and in your own thoughts, it'll kill you. His father-in-law saw all that Moses was doing. What is this you're doing? Why do you alone sit as judge? While all these people stand around you from morning till evening. Now watch Moses reply. Moses answered him. He says, because. In other words, here's what Moses said. What do you want me to do? Because the people come to me to seek God's will. What do you want me to do? I'm the pastor. What do you want me to do? I'm the worship pastor, right? What do you want me to do? I'm the small group pastor. Like, what do you want me to do? Like, I can't help it. I've got all these kids, what they're paying me to do. But watch what Moses' father-in-law said. This is not good. Wow. This is not good. His father-in-law exclaimed. Now watch this next sentence. You're going to wear yourself out. And then watch what he says. And the people too. So now he's saying, look, I know you're trying to do this, but you do it your way. You're going to wear yourself out. You're going to find yourself in a place where you're in a dust-filled, construction-filled room, and you don't even really want to continue yourself, much less everybody else that you're trying to lead and trying to get excited, trying to get around the vision. He says, you're going to wear yourself out, and the people too. I want you to watch this next verse. Exodus 18. This job is too heavy a burden for you to handle all by yourself. That hit me at about 5:15 in the morning. Up all night not knowing if I was even going to continue. And that night I realized something. Because the scripture goes on in the same passage, starts telling Moses, here's what you really got to do. You got to do it the right way. The right way is this is your role. You got to do this, this, this. You can read it. It's a great read. I just don't have a whole lot of time to do that. But boom, boom, you got to do all the stuff. And then all of a sudden he says, if you do that, if you do it this way, everyone will go home and they will be ministered to and you will have success and happiness too. So all of a sudden he's there in that place and he reaches this point and he has this crossroads. And my prayer is no matter who you are in this room, if you're a small group leader, if you're a volunteer, man, if you're like a ministry leader in the youth ministry, if you're over teams, it doesn't even matter what you do. If you're the youth pastor, you're on staff at a youth ministry, that you would find a place, a moment today where God reaches your heart and you realize your job isn't to do the ministry, it's to equip others to do the ministry. So it doesn't even, some of you think, no, that's what the pastor, no. You know what I tell our whole staff? We have about 78 people on staff, 75 people on staff, and I tell them almost every month, I find a place, a moment in our training time, and I say, here's the deal. If you are getting the job done week to week, you are not doing the job. Your first job, number one, is to get the job done through other people, period. We are a volunteer-centric place. So your job is not to do the job. If you're over people, then your job is to get the job done through other people. In other words, get this in your head, because this is crazy. A thought. You cannot do everything. You can't do everything. But here's the other thought. You should not do everything. Even if you can, you shouldn't, right? And what you've got to do is recognize this thought that is depressing, and I'm sorry to even make it the reality to you today, but here's the truth, is that you cannot do what God has called you to do. You can never do what God has called. Here's why. Because God will never call you to do something the right way that even falls to just you. In other words, anything God ever gives you is bigger than you. Any role he places you in is bigger than you. Any small group he gives you is bigger than you. Any team of musicians he gives you to lead is bigger than you if you do it the right way. Because if you do it the right way, you can't do it. You literally can't do it. Here's why. Because he wants you to depend on others, but ultimately he wants you to depend on him. Because it's not about doing it a way, it's about doing it the right way. You do it the right way, you won't want to quit. You do it the right way, I'm not saying things aren't going to be hard, but let me just tell you, there's always an answer. Because when you do it God's way, you cannot do everything, and you should not do everything. Fact is, you got to learn to step away so others can step up. Now, get this. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you're a small group leader. It doesn't matter if you're in the band. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter if you're an usher, your greeter. You need to go, okay, who am I training and placing in this particular situation with me? I've got to figure out a way to step away so other people can step up. In other words, you got to work yourself out of a job. Now, everybody in here, I don't care who you are, I don't care what role you got. You need to work yourself out of a job. You go, well, then I won't have a job. Here's the thing that you got to recognize. The most valuable person in this room today is the person that works themselves out of a job because they're a multiplier, not a worker. And a multiplier is the most effective person in any ministry. Because here's why. You literally can't do it. Think about it like this. What if today at lunch, Pastor Heath said, hey, guys, here's the deal. Nobody has to go anywhere for lunch today. We're going to buy everybody pizza. And so we dismiss the session. We go all out in the lobby, and there's one large pizza sitting out there for all 225 of us. He sits out there, and he goes, okay, so this is good. This is good, guys. We got a little cutter here. We're going to cut the pizza up. How many of you think that everybody would get something to eat? You don't even know how to answer that, do you? Here's the fact. We could feed everybody in here on one large pizza. Now, the sizes may be like the size of a crumb. It may be about a fourth of the size of your pinky nail, but everybody would have something. We could cut it small enough, but here's what's going to happen. You're going to go, oh, this is stupid. He promised to feed us, and all he gives us is this little bit. So what's going to happen is you're going to be a little frustrated that what he promised you didn't deliver. And secondly, you're going to go out in the parking lot, get in your car, and go eat somewhere else. Now, I'm already kind of preaching, and you don't even know it yet. See, if you build it all on you, you build your small group, even if there's 12 kids there, you build a small group all on you, here's what's going to happen. Some are going to leave because you can't divide yourself up in too many pieces to feed everybody in where they need in life. And what God, not just their needs, but what God's trying to develop in them. Like you cannot do it. Some of you are married, some of you got kids, you got schoolwork, you got jobs, you got to mow your yard, you got diapers to change at home, you got your own spiritual life you got to figure out. You got enough on your plate to even just handle that. And then God calls you to do this. You cannot do it alone. But here's what happens. Here's what happens. Students come in, they get a little aggravated. I thought church was going to be the answer. I thought youth ministry was going to be the answer. Man, I thought youth ministry was supposed to kind of bring fulfillment. I thought this was going to happen. And then what happens is they go out, and then pretty soon they fade away from the youth ministry and they go eat somewhere else. And we're lucky if it's another youth ministry. But most of the time, it's not. Vesta Kelly said this quote, snowflakes are one of nature's most fragile things, but look what they can do when they stick together. Think about this. Now, you're in Oklahoma. Y'all had an ice storm, I heard, a few weeks ago, months ago, something like that, and it kind of shut down. People were going crazy, like in early January, something like that, and Heath was telling me, and so, man, you think about this. I lived in Dallas the last 20-something years. We would have ice storms, and literally, if you've ever been in a snowstorm, you know that you can catch a snowflake on your finger, and what does it do? Instantly melt. In other words, snowflakes are nothing. They're fragile. They melt. They're literally, there's nothing powerful about a snowflake. But when they all come together, it shuts down an entire city. They'll cancel school for 4 days in Dallas when it ices. I mean, everybody gets chili, cooks chili in their house, and just sits inside watching movies and never getting out of their pajamas. It's actually pretty great. And for like 4 straight days. But the fact is that alone, nothing. You go, well, man, I don't even know how to work myself. We don't even have any good leaders. Can I just tell you, it's not about being a good leader, it's about being a good team. Because if you can get people together with a common unity and vision, it doesn't matter how much they know. It doesn't even matter how much they can do. Because God looks for availability, not ability. But the problem is a lot of us, what we're looking for is ability over availability. You got to look for availability and start letting God grow them. See, here's the problem. Sometimes what we do is we look at youth ministries that are bigger, and then we get kind of, well, yeah, look at their church. Well, look at their facility. Well, yeah, they got like 120 leaders. Yeah, I lived the first 5 years of my ministry being mad at other youth ministries that were bigger because they had more leaders. Well, yeah, you give me that many leaders, and I could do it too. Well, yeah, you give us that. Yeah, you build a youth facility like that, and yeah, obviously, it's easy that way. I mean, you don't know what I'm going through. But here's the whole point. Leaders aren't given, they're grown. You don't need to get great leaders, you need to grow great leaders. So find the availability and grow them. Just grow them. Now, there's a lot of reasons why we don't build teams, right? There's a lot of reasons why we don't do this. And I'll never forget, like, a lot of times it's because we want to be kind of the center of attention, you know? Sometimes it could be, like, I used to love going out of town, coming back, because everybody would say, hey, don't ever leave again. Man, it's just not the same without you. You know, I'd be like, oh, man, stop. No, seriously, keep going. No, stop. Stop. You know why? Because it feels good, right? But I'll never forget the time that we started changing everything, stuck dynamite under our youth ministry, that's a metaphor, and blew it up and started building it God's way and started doing it the right way where it's not about a person, that every small group leader wasn't even about them, that we started building it that way. I'll never forget, I'd be gone 2 weeks and no one even knew. You know why? Because ministry is never supposed to be about you or your personality. It's supposed to be about him on center stage. And the only way you can put him on center stage is when you make it all about him and the team makes it all about him. I'll never forget, I had this kid come up to me. And honestly, look, I'm not even saying this to be mean, it's just the truth. Like, we all have those kids in our youth ministry, you know? And I had this kid that was, he was a challenge, partly because he didn't bathe and he smelled real bad. You know those dudes? And then, like, he didn't know how to do his hair. I'm not even sure he ever did his hair. And so he was kind of socially awkward, didn't really talk to anybody because nobody would. And, like, he was that way, and he came up to me. He's, like, very techie, you know? And I don't even mean that to classify all techie dudes like that. But what I'm saying is that was just what his thing. He came to me one night in the altar, and he says, hey, Pastor Dan. He was, like, 14 years old. Pastor Dan. I said, yeah. We were starting to grow. Things were really, like, taking off. And he said, hey, listen, man, I feel like God called me to something. I said, okay, let's talk. And he goes, can you come over to the side? I said, yeah, come over to the side. He goes, hey, God wants me to be a pastor. I feel like God told me to be a youth pastor, and then one day I'm going to start my own church. I said, and let me just be honest. Like, I know this makes me look bad, but if I'm really honest with you, in my mind, here's what I thought. There's no way. You know that you got to actually be able to connect to people, right? Like, and you can't smell like that. And like you can't, like, you know that there's no way. Like, have you ever thought about just going to work at Fry's, right? Like, or that's an electronic store if you don't know that. Like, right? And so I'm just like, hey, just go. Like, have you ever thought about, there's a lot of great, but I didn't. I said, really? And he goes, yeah. And I go, huh. And he goes, so I was thinking, I felt like God told me that if I would meet with you, you know, for the next few years, that God would, you know, start to open those doors for me. He goes, you think you can meet with me every week? I said, man, I really can't. You know why? Because I didn't even believe in him. Now, I believed in him in something else, but not that, if I'm really honest. And he goes, okay, what about once a month? I said, okay, yeah, I'll meet with you once a month. Now, here's the thing. I'm not even saying you got to be cool, you got to do anything like that, but, like, the dude just had a lot of issues. You know, he was just one of those kids that's very challenging. And I loved him, but he was very challenging. As a matter of fact, just to show you what he was like, he had, like, one of his toes had 2 toenails. And if you got jacked up toenails, it's okay. Like, but one of his toes has 2 toenails. But he had a skin flap in the middle, and he had, like, devil horn toenails. One toenail went that way, the other one went that way. And that's cool if that's you. Just don't wear sandals 9 months out of the year like he did. Yeah, like he did. Don't wear sandals. That's fine. And so, but he did. So you know what our first meeting was? Okay, we're going to get to the youth pastor and stuff. Let's just talk about you. Hygiene, socks and shoes for you. Brush your teeth. Okay, we started going like this. After about 6 months, I saw a difference in that dude. And I said, hey, what if we met every other week? Every other week. He goes, really? I said, yeah. After a year, I said, what if we just met once a week after youth service, and I'll give you 15 minutes every week? He said, okay, let's do it. 2 years later, this dude is the best student leader we have ever seen. Personally, reached over 115 students from his school, got them saved, and now our youth ministry quadrupled, not because of him, but because of students like him. And I saw him personally reach people to the Lord. Our youth ministry started out at the time, when we started small groups, we started with 8. At the time, we went to 59 small groups in our youth ministry. And get this, you're not even going to believe this. 29 of the 59 small groups were birthed and multiplied from his small group that he led as a student in high school. Here's what I'm telling you. Don't overlook anybody. Quit looking for ability and look for availability and heart, and then let God just use you to pour them in. Develop them. Ephesians even tells us, gave some to be apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, teachers, all that stuff, equipping the saints for the work of the ministry, for edifying of the body of Christ, right? There's a lot of reasons why, man, I don't know how. There's no leaders. How am I going to find people? Look, I don't care how old they are. I don't care how young they are. I'm going to use them because there's a place you can create for anybody. And what you've got to recognize is God wants you to have a visionary mindset that simply says, you know what? I don't care who they are. I'm going to create enough holes in the board of our youth ministry that everyone finds a place where they can go in. Instead of making one entry point, make a bunch and figure out what you can do to do it. In other words, the growth of your youth ministry follows the growth of the team. It didn't matter when we were 12 or when we end up with, 1,200 a week. It doesn't matter where you are. What I always found is the percentage between leaders and students was always about 5 or 6 students to every one leader that we had. And when I changed my focus to just trying to reach students, it was still our focus, but now my focus was now I just need to keep growing the team. Not only grow them numerically, but grow them spiritually and in their leadership. I got to figure out a way to grow these dudes in every way that I can, because when I grow the team and get more people off the stands and onto the field, more people will fill into the stands just to see all the people on the field. In other words, when you recognize that the bigger you grow the team, it's backwards in most of our mindsets, is that we want to get the students, and we've got to realize you got to grow the team. It's got to be about vision. It's got to be about purpose. And so let me just give you 5 quick things, and I'm not going to spend any time on them, but let me give you 5 quick things just to get this mindset in your head. How are you going to grow the team? Number 1, you got to spread the dream. It's got to start with vision. It's got to start with vision. Everybody say vision. You got to figure that out. If you don't have the vision, or the vision's all about you, then what you need to recognize is that you need to actually figure out the vision, and you need to recognize God doesn't give you the vision for you to hold. He gives you the vision for you to spread the vision, right? I mean, think about it. Think about understanding. There's even, like, me and my wife love to go on cruises, and we love to kind of, we go on a cruise just about every other year, take the girls, and it's so fun, man. We go on cruises all the time, and I love them. I mean, you can do anything you want. My wife, I don't like to go outside because I get sunburnt real easy. I have to put on SPF 50 just to check the mail in the morning. I have to figure things out, right? So I like to do other things, and so we can do that. And then when we go to dinner, it's amazing because all the food's free. It's so good. You can go anywhere you want. You can go to the Caribbean, you can go this, you can go that. And so we're getting dressed for dinner, and you can call room service because it's free. Do you even understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? It's free. And so I'm getting ready to go to a 6-course dinner, and I'm ordering a pizza and a rack of ribs just to eat while my wife takes a little longer to get ready than me. Why? Because it's free. So we go on these cruises, and we can go everywhere. We can go to the last cruise, Western Caribbean, Eastern Caribbean. We can go to all this stuff, Mediterranean. We can go to everything. And so there's actually cruises in California that they don't have a destination. You know what they say? This is a 7-day cruise to nowhere. You don't stop at any ports. You don't go to any other countries. There's no excursions. It's literally you just get on the ship, you laugh, you eat a lot, take a lot of pictures, post them on social media, and in 7 days you come right back to where you started. You know the sad truth is that a lot of our youth ministries are visionless, and all they are is a 365-day cruise to nowhere. And every year we go in a circle, same events. We take a lot of pictures, post them on Facebook, Instagram. We have a lot of memories and a lot of laughs and eat a lot of food, but we're not going anywhere. Let me tell you what students need. It's fine. Take the memories. All that stuff should serve one purpose, and that is, where is God taking your youth ministry? Okay? There's nothing wrong with all that, but make sure all of that is shoving people towards where God has taken your youth ministry. And you got to spread that dream. You got to give that. In other words, you got to show people tomorrow today. So you got to ask yourself, how am I showing people tomorrow today? How am I growing in attracting people? Because people are attracted by vision more than anything. You know that I've never had my own youth facility, ever. I've always had minimum of a 5-hour setup on Wednesday that couldn't start until 12 o'clock for a 7 o'clock service. Having your own facility does not stop you or help you any more than not having it. And you need to recognize it's more about vision than it is anything else. And then 2, I would tell you this, recruit people constantly. So recruit people constantly. This needs to be everybody's job. So if you're a youth pastor in here, it's your job. If you're a volunteer leader, it's your job. If you're a student age high school leader in here, it's your job. You need to recruit people constantly, everything that you do. Look at the relationships you have. And remember, it's about ability, right? Not ability, but availability. And you need to look at people. Like, understand, like, you need people with character and passion, and then people that just love God and then just go with it. In other words, when you recruit to the vision, not to a position, people come on board to fight for that. But you got to recruit people. And like using your events to recruit people. We used to tell people all the time, hey, come, we're having this big outreach target night. Man, we'd love for you to come serve. So we'd set up something like, we'd talk to our pastor, we'd figure out how to do that, and we'd recruit people just for one night. We would say, no, we don't want you to work with us. No, that's stupid. We just want you to help us this one night. We're believing for a few hundred extra people. And I'll never forget it. Man, one of the first nights we kind of started doing that with that mindset, we had 850 students get saved on one event, all come forward, give their heart to Jesus, and I'll never forget, we recruited 500 people from the church, and they were all lined up in the balcony, and every one of them were bawling. That week, the next day, I got over 50 emails to me and all of our team that just were parents going, I've never seen anything like this. How can I sign up to be a part of this every week? In other words, what you've got to do is recruit people constantly, but understand this. If you don't have a system and a plan and what you're recruiting them to, it doesn't work. In other words, too many times we wait until we need something in order to actually recruit people for it. You can't build your youth ministry for where you are. You got to build it for where you're going. Right? In other words, you got to recognize that more often than not, that God is waiting on you to have vision and put legs to that vision so that you can begin to recruit people towards something. So, you got to recruit people constantly, which leads me to 3. You got to give away responsibility. I know we've had some breakouts on this one, and so let me tell you, there's some great things, and I don't know if you can get the notes or whatever, but I think it'd be great for you to get with somebody and say, hey, how do I do this? But you got to give away responsibility. In other words, you know what I told our staff in the early years when we just broke 100 for the first time? And I was like, look, I want to see us break 1,000, and we will, and we did. But we started a leadership meeting, and I'll never forget the first time we started a leadership meeting, we're sitting there, and I was like, we got to figure this out. And so I told our people, our staff, I said, listen, and none of them got paid at this time, by the way. It was just, I just gave them title more than money because we didn't have any money. So the whole point was we had this staff, and I told them, listen, no more is it I or me. It's always we and us. So I would get done, and I wouldn't be like, I preached on. It would be like, yeah, we preached on. Or it'd be like, yeah, man, we saw God do. Or we shared this story, and it was never I or me. And so we banned the words I and me from our leadership team. No more. It's always we and us. Because you don't preach people into salvation. The ushers are welcoming and loving them into salvation before you ever get the mic to preach. So you got to recognize every job works together. I don't care who gets the last call. It's everybody. And you got to give away responsibility. In other words, you got to create things. You got to treat things the way you want it to be, or it'll never be that way. So how are you treating it? You got to treat it how you want it to be, or it'll never be there. And this is the way we would do it. I mean, it was really simple, but we would give people small things to do when they proved themselves faithful. It was scriptural, right? Faithful in little things, make them rule over much. So we'd give people small things to do. Those that excelled at that, we gave them big things. Those that excelled at that, we gave them people, students. We said, man, you need to be over small group. You need to be over students. And so we would do that. In other words, I used to get frustrated that our volunteers, our leaders wouldn't take ownership. And I used to get so aggravated, and I would gripe and complain about it. And let me just tell you this. This is so true. People can't take ownership unless you give them something to own. So don't complain about leaders and volunteers under you, whether you're leading a small group or leading the ministry, that they won't take ownership if you haven't created something for them to actually own. You can't get mad at that, right? Give them something to own, then they'll take the ownership. But they can't take something you're not giving them. So you got to figure out a way to step back so that other people can step up. Number 4 is you got to grow together intentionally. I like this, and I'm a firm believer in this. What we're doing the last 2 days, you need to figure out a way to train your volunteers and leaders. I don't care how that system is built, but you need to figure out a way to train your volunteers and leaders on at least a monthly basis. And honestly, I feel like that may even be too, not enough. I mean, we kind of did a weekly leadership class, and when we launched that, there were 3 people in the room. I didn't even know what I was teaching. There were 3 people in the room. It was my wife, and she didn't really want to hear me teach on that. And then there was one other guy that was like my right-hand guy. He didn't either. But I stood up there, and I would do fill-in-the-blank notes for those 2 people. I'd do fill-in-the-blank notes, and I'm like, okay, here we go. And I'd stand up there and teach. And you know what the stupid thing was? I mean, my wife's my wife. She loves me, obviously, but she didn't want to hear that. I mean, she's like, what? But then he would help me write the lessons. So half the people in the audience helped me write it because I didn't know what I was doing. But you got to figure out a way to grow, right? You got to recognize and ask yourself, how is our small group leaders, if there's only 2 of you, how are we growing together? How are we getting that? How is our team getting it? And you got to build those things. And then number 5, and this is it, is you got to reproduce yourself repeatedly. I'll never forget being on that floor and God telling me, so do I. More than anything, it's about reproducing who you are in other people, which means you literally have to step away. Step away. It means maybe for some of us less mic time. It means maybe for some of us less spotlight time. But here's the fact. Your youth ministry success is dependent upon one thing: successors. If you are not raising up successors, your youth ministry will have a flash-in-the-pan success, not permanent success. So it cannot be about, in other words, here's what I'm saying. A lot of times we get into the production. How many numbers? How many people got saved? How many this? How many that? It's about production, excellence, production, numbers, production. But let me just tell you this. The only thing better than production is reproduction. Quit making production the goal and make reproduction the goal. So how are you reproducing yourself? Because production is only bested by reproduction. And so you need to ask yourself, how are we reproducing ourselves repeatedly? In other words, work yourself out of a job. You'll always have it. So my prayer today is simply this, that you would have a moment. Doesn't matter if you're a volunteer, if you're a high school student, if you're a volunteer youth pastor, or if you're a paid full-time. It doesn't matter where you are in between. You would have this crossroads in this moment. And spiritually, God would take you right now to a place of solitude and simply say this: let's build this thing the right way, not just a way.